We came out to this area to scout. I've never been in this spot before, and I wanted to kind of show how I speed scout an area and just go over some of the different things that I'm looking for whenever I'm speed scouting. The first thing I do is I get on an app. I use OnX. Now there's a bunch of satellite image maps or whatever you can use or whatever you want to use that are very effective for this, but just find the area that you want to scout. And I'm looking for areas that have good terrain, so I'm looking for contour lines on that map and a lot of hard edge in vegetation. So places that have, obvious from a satellite image, obvious defined areas from fields to wood lines to maybe water edge, whatever. I want as much edge as possible. Throw in a few terrain features and that's awesome. And that's all I need to see. I don't get all hung up looking at maps, studying it too hard and getting hung up in that. I just want to see a bird's eye view of the area and then go and walk on it and see for myself what it's actually like. And that's what I'm doing today out on this river bottom. We kayaked across, and it's kind of a remote area, and just gonna look, check all these edges in this river bottom and make our way north to a little bit more of a hillside. And I'll give a bunch of strategies for what I'm looking for and what I'm doing when I'm out doing a scout like this, and specifically speed scouting. Wanting to get through it really quick because I don't have time. We're running out of daylight, and use this in season too whenever you're trying to get to an area, hang up and hunt immediately. So this is a good example right here of what I'm talking about when it comes to not overthinking satellite images. I would never be able to see this on space. Now this is a massive hard edge. You can see where these giant ferns that are about 6 feet tall start. It tapers down to these flowers and then to another edge on the other side of that. This is an area where the vegetation is about waist high. Deer would love to pick through this, walking through this on this edge, not quite going all the way into those ferns. So this is the reason why you got to get out and really look at an area and not depend on satellite images. And so one thing about these hard edges is that they are going to be just full of different kinds of vegetation for them to eat. I mean, this thing is full of small ragweed and lots of greens and stuff, cockleburs, stuff that they'll love to munch on as they're making their way into these wood lines. You can't see that from a satellite image. You got to get out and walk to know it's here. So one last point about going out and scouting and finding these edges is something like this, where there's a very soft edge and it's going to change from season to season. This isn't going to be like this every year, where there's this light vegetation, this feathered edge going out into this opening here. And there's a heavy trail going right down the middle of it. And that's going to change every year. So this is another good reason to get out and actually get boots on the ground and look. Okay, so we walked that soft edge up into the wood line here, and at T intersections with this other edge, which is on the wood line, these are the ones that are easy to see from a satellite, good ones to kind of walk straight to and walk on the outside edge of a tree line, and you can find a lot of good sign. We just happened to find this here. This is a brand new rub, and it looks like it's a pretty good buck. I may even set the camera here, but he's got a tine mark all the way up here, and he shredded it up. This is the first rub I've seen this year. And so yeah, this T intersection like this would be a great place to set up and hunt. And you can quickly find one of these, look at the satellite map, walk out, walk the edge of the tree line that you found on satellite, and odds are you're going to find some pretty good signs. So following a soft edge to a more hard edge, you're going to have a T intersection like this one right here, and we happen to have a great tree right here, one a little bit further off we could potentially set up in, and this would be a easy, ideal place to hunt. We're going to quickly walk this edge. We're going to walk parallel to it and see what other sign we find. Main thing that I'm looking for whenever I do this is other people's stands. You know, I'm out on public land, so I want to know if anybody else is in this area hunting it. You know, look for other cameras, other people's stuff, and figure out if there's much pressure here. But yeah, other than that, just looking for the basic deer sign, scrapes, rubs, poop, whatever, you know, tracks, whatever I can find. So just gonna walk quick and see what we can find. So another thing we're looking for, you know, quickly speed scouting is historical sign. I mean, of course, you're going to want to look for current sign, and that's a little bit more relevant, but your historical sign is going to tell you what was going on in the season prior. So here's some old rubs, and they're the best ones to know or to take note of for historical sign. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rubs in this one spot. So there's something going on here. I mean, right now there's nothing fresh other than, you know, this has been eaten on by deer and some of the other vegetation, but there's something about this spot that's going on probably closer to the rut to take note of. Mark it on the map, keep it in mind, because this might light off with a bunch of rut activity later on in the season. Walking through really fast, we found this massive food source, really. There's tons of briars, blackberry, snow on the prairie, and grapevines all through this. I mean, this is probably 3 acres of nothing but good green food. It's also good bedding too. You know, they like to sit down in these briars. They can sit here and munch on stuff while they're bedded. So it's another thing to kind of look out for. Walking through real fast, locate a food source. This will still be good and green and being eaten on well into October. We're in the south, so we'll have a lot of good foliage even into November. So we're going to take note of this. Whenever you're scouting, just take note of every food source you find, and obviously it requires knowledge of the seasons and how well things will hold up later into the fall in your area, but I know that here in the south we'll have a lot of greens here, and this will be a good spot to kind of keep an eye on for deer coming to eat at the night. Okay, so we're kind of wrapping things up now. We're running out of daylight. I'm going to go set a camera probably on that rub over there at that T intersection that we found. The last thing I wanted to talk about as far as speed scouting goes is just knowing your access. Once you've located where you're going to hunt, you've scouted it out, if you're not going to just set up right there on the spot, knowing how you're going to come in when you do plan to hunt. It's always important to just know your route. This area, I plan on kayaking in. You see the water in the background here. Kayaking in up to the shoreline and then just cutting in. I got the south this direction and moving with my face to the wind up these edges and setting up in a tree to the north or to the south of here. That way the wind is always safe. I'm always kind of J-hooking like bucks will do going into their beds. I'm J-hooking into the area that I plan to hunt. Knowing your access, I think, is probably the most important part of getting out and hunting. So, because if you're just pushing everything out every time, there's no reason to even bother with it. So, know your access. Should be the final thing that you scout is walk out the way that you plan to walk in to hunt it. It's what I always do, and it works. It gives you a good heads up on what to expect. You know, if there's gonna be a bunch of dry shrub on the ground, whether it's a bunch of noisy stuff, you know when to move fast and when to move slow. It's a very good way to minimize noise and all your disturbance to the woods. So yeah, that'll wrap this up, and we're gonna set the camera, get back to the kayak and head on out of here. Thanks for watching.